some of my humanity.
You were in a bank robbery?
I was in a bank robbery.
The Bible calls us to love.
Said that to me again. So, Pete.
Yeah.
Or is it Peter?
Everyone back in New England where I grew up calls me Pete. I moved out here and I went by Peter. And then the last year and a half has been me being like, actually, I like Pete more.
You like Pete
So
more?
I do like Pete more.
But on your birth certificate, it says Peter.
Oh, it's Peter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just like the disciple.
Are you like
Thomas.
Your
is
middle
my
name is?
Yeah.
Whoa.
My brother, and then my brother's Mark Phillip, like straight up Baptist disciple names.
Dude.
My dad was very adamant about that.
That is the best.
Yeah.
That is the best. All right, so you're from the East Coast. Just tell me a little bit about like how you went from the East Coast to the West Coast, how you got into ministry, and where you're currently at.
Yeah, so I grew up in like a super conservative Baptist church in New England. And New England's like very irreligious. Like it's a little bit different than out here out west. Like, but in the West, like the people are irreligious, but there's like no tradition really. In New England, like people are irreligious, but there's like this tradition because of how old things are and how embedded churches were. It just it feels more religious, even though it's not. And so my parents like gave their life to Christ. My mom did first, but then my dad did. I was the first child born into like a fully Christian family. So like my two older siblings were born before my dad became a Christian. And then when he became a Christian, like he came from a life of like partying, drugs, alcohol, like literally 180, like changed his life, went super hard into being like a deacon at the church, like being involved. And he was right out to become the associate pastor. And then he died. It's like he died when I was like about 5 years old. And so the church, for all of its like conservative, legalistic tendencies, being a fundamentalist Baptist church, they did a really good job taking care of me and my siblings. And they had a private school, and they pretty much made my mom pay for one of the four of us, and the rest of us went for free. And like if there was a Father's Day baseball game, they always made sure someone like took us. And so it was from a very young age, like I wanted to be involved in ministry because I had seen so practically people who were flawed still caring and being loving and taking care of the fatherless. And so I went to private school and was very involved in the youth group. Was able to like be part of a youth group leadership program where I got taught when I was in youth group, things like that. And just sensed a call to go be in vocational ministry. And so I went to Moody Bible Institute, and I applied too late. So I did the whole defer program where they sent me to Spokane, which was like their aviation campus.
Yeah.
And with the process of like, oh, go do a year there because we really liked you as an applicant, and then you can come to transfer into Chicago. I went there, and I liked it so much, and I liked the professors so much. I stayed, and I met my wife. And so Steph and I have been together for 10 years, been married for almost 8. And yeah, so then I met her, moved back to New England for like 2 years. I should mention this. Like I wanted to do vocational ministry. When I got done with Bible college, a lot of my friends went and got jobs because they had to. It's like, oh, this is what I just spent money on a degree for. I don't know if I'm actually called towards this, but like this is why I got a degree, and so I have to go make money. So they'd be accepted youth pastor jobs. They accepted these jobs, and like I knew the things they're still struggling with. And again, like that's everyone's decision. Like people can be in ministry and struggle. I was like, I'm 22 and I have a lot of things that I'm still working on. I don't think I should be leading people right now. And so I actually went into private sector and got a job working at a software company. And I did that for 6 years. And that actually, I think, prepared me for a lot of what I do now, kind of combined with the degree I got. But yeah, anyways, so moved back to New Hampshire for 2 years, was with my family. And then when we started wanting to have kids, we ended up here. Was still working at the software company, and just through a very clear calling from God, joined my local church on the team about 5 years ago. And then became a pastor with the church about 2 years ago. Yeah. So it was like in the elder development or pastoral process, and then became a pastor about 2 years ago. So that's how that was like the very condensed version of like kind of upbringing, where I'm from, and then like how I got involved in vocational ministry.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you were in Spokane at Moody, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you stay there?
For 4 years.
And what years were you there? I'm just curious.
2010 to 2015 or 2011 to 2015.
Were you there at the Kingdom, what is it? Kingdom and Country concert?
I did not go. Were you there?
I was there. That's why I was curious. I was like,
Yeah, well,
you
'cause
might have been there at the same time.
I knew that you were living in Spokane and you went to Whitworth, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just 8 years. So
we were there together.
yes,
But never met.
never met.
Never met.
Yeah.
But now we met.
But now, well, yes, we have met.
And now we're friends. Yeah.
We have definitely met. All right, so I had a chance to meet you through the Saturate cohort. You know that you guys are actually one of the hosts over for at Resurrection Church, and it's been phenomenal. But I got a chance to really hear about like your creative side from a very unique way. Do you know how that happened?
Is it from our meeting about
No, guess again.
how you heard about my creative side? Is it from someone else or is it from me?
No, guess again. It's from you, but
It's
like
from me.
something like very interesting happened, right? All right, so let me just explain it.
You gotta tell me, yeah, because I'm clueless right now.
So we're there. We're like in like your guys' fellowship hall area, and we're meeting, and we're getting food, which I think whenever you have food around Christians, it's always a good time. But I'm hearing this
Chipotle?
music. It was Chipotle.
Yeah, it was Chipotle.
I'm hearing this music, and I was like, "Hey, Pete, like, who's controlling like the playlist or the soundtrack?" And you're like, "Oh, that's mine. Do you like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. Like, this has got like a vibe to it and everything."
Yeah.
And then you shared your playlist with me, your podcast playlist, not podcast, but your Spotify playlist. And ever since then, I was like, dude, Pete is on the level from a different place. I was like, okay, Pete's different. So then actually talking to you more and learning more about like your role there at that time, because at that time you're heavy on the communications, right? And just understanding like some of your gifts and talents and things like that. I was like, this dude's Pete. He's different. He's different for sure. Because I didn't expect, like when I met you, I did not expect like your musical selection to be that eclectic.
You didn't expect me to have any taste at all?
No.
Like,
Dude, no.
This guy listens to country and that's it.
That's it.
No.
Or rock. I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rock.
If I'm being honest, I was like, and here's the thing, I'm okay. Like
I actually don't like country at all. Unless
You
it's
don't
like
like country?
Well, unless it's like old school country, like Johnny Cash or like, I mean, Chris Stapleton. Like now, like there are certain country singers who I'm like, okay, you actually like make good music. But like generic country is probably my least favorite genre.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you're also from the East Coast too.
Yeah. It's
I
not
feel like
a
that's
big
not a
country.
huge- yeah.
No. Very indie rock is like probably the main Indian folk rock. Like, but like I mean, I got rap, I got jazz, I got classical even. Like that's the weird thing. I grew up like private Christian school. That I have these mornings where like if I want to feel very nostalgic, like I put like choir music on because I grew up with that.
What?
And so like if I want to feel like nostalgic and in my feelings of like my childhood,
Yeah.
I put like these choral singers of like like Anglican choirs
Yeah,
like singing old hymns in big cathedrals. I'll just like throw that on if I just like want to be nostalgic because that's what I grew up listening to.
Were you a choir boy?
I was forced to be in choir. It's not something I wanted to do, but I was at a small private Christian school where it's like, okay, you're gonna act in the play, you're gonna sing in the choir, you're gonna play all the sports because you are an able-bodied man. So like, oh, you have a tenor range? Yeah, you're gonna sing. And I'm like, I'm not that good. Like, it doesn't matter. We need a warm body, so you're gonna go in there.
We need a warm body.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even you had to take an instrument. Like I was not good at trumpet. But like
Played the trumpet.
Yeah, but they were like, okay, well, we need you for the performances. And I'm like, I'm not good. And they're like, can you hit this note and this note? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Like, well, it's good enough. So like I played like in like orchestras and I'm like, I'm not good. So anyways, it was very much like a private Christian school. It's like, you're going to do like everything. So anyways, I think maybe that was part of the reason of like, I grew up only listening to like one type of music.
Yeah.
It was very much like I wasn't even like allowed to listen to Stephen Chris Chapman or things like that. It was like chorale music only. And so like when I got the ability and like things like Spotify and Apple Music came out, I just became ravenous. I was like, oh, there's this type of music and there's this type of music and like this sounds cool and this sounds cool. Like I just like ate it up. And so I
Interesting.
think it was part of like how I grew up coming out of that was like, I just wanted to like hear different things and like engage in different types of music and things like that. Cause I'm like, this is great. And this is great. So yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it's, wow. Well, I didn't know you were in a choir.
Like super psychological.
You went a little deeper on that.
Yeah.
But I love that, to be honest. Yeah, I really want to hear you sing one day and see if you have like the choir boy voice. Anyways, and it's also interesting that you listen to choral music in the morning. Like, here's the thing. I understand.
Some mornings. Not every morning.
That. So you can ask my wife, like, you know, Christian music. I love Christian music. I love gospel music. But like, the music that's closest to me is old hymns. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll sing old hymns like all the time.
What's your go-to hymn?
Oh, it just depends on the season. Right now it's
Easter.
Near the cross. Right now it's near the cross. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's just, there's certain hymns that like I hear, and you know, I play music too. So like when I hear the way the melody is shaped, it reminds me of being in church when I was a kid, and we were just singing these songs and belting them out and different things. And it's so also interesting that like when I got into college, that's when I really started to understand the words and understand that it was, you know, these words are actually biblical. Like a lot of the old hymns were singing scripture, not all of the old hymns, but a lot of the old hymns were singing scripture, right? So when I got more into the word and I started to realize like, oh, this song that I knew, I'm actually learning scripture when I was singing these hymns. And for some reason, those songs like just stick with me to the core a little bit more. And don't get me wrong, I still love, you know, the new music that gets you moving and grooving and stuff like that. But there's just something different about the hymns. Yeah. And it's that like nostalgic thing. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
The choral thing, you know.
Well, that's like, it's interesting because like, there's the words and then there's like the music itself. And so it is true. Like I same thing. I grew up on hymns, and it's like, it educated me so well on who God is.
Yes.
Like they're so good about making your attention just focused on God and King Jesus and giving him glory and praise of like, just look at all that he's done. Look at who he is.
Yeah.
But then it is funny though, when you think of the music of like, which is almost like the expression of that. Like I grew up singing all these amazing things, and we all just like sang with our arms beside ourselves and just kind of like saying all in the same voice. And there's something special about that, I guess, maybe like all being uniform. But there's like just no expression of like, do we actually believe this? Like, you know, it's like, I see you guys at a football game and you guys are like freaking out when the Patriots score a touchdown or things like that. And then, but then you come to like church and it's like almost like this like, stoic face. And so that's where it's like, then I had like church experiences, and like you go to concerts and you're like, oh, like you see the expression of the things you're singing kind of going together of like, oh, you're singing the right words, and like I'm seeing you move, like, you know, or things like that. So that's where that's why music I think is so special, is because like it's both the medium and the message like come together in one, and it's just like can overwhelm you at times and things like that. So yeah, but I think very fondly back on hymns and hymnody. And it's cool because now a lot of like modern musicians are reclaiming hymns.
Yes.
And putting it to like rap and putting it to indie music and putting it to rock and, you know, doing all these things with it, which is really cool.
I have a theory for that. And my theory is this. Creativity has been stifled, right? A lot. And, you know, your normal 4-chord progression songs, and don't get me wrong, some of these songs are great, but like if, for example, I was in France in 2018 or so, and I was just, you know, I got a chance to go to this old church where they were having a wedding, and I got a chance to go upstairs where the organ was at, and they had a professional concert celloist there. And I get up there and I'm just like, you know, she doesn't really speak English too well. And I just wanted to play with him. And I was like, and I don't play the organ, I play the piano. But like there's some crossover there. And, you know, I'm like naming songs. There were 2 songs that she knew that I knew. And it was Chris Tomlin, How Great, right? How Great Is Our God. Which I think that song is going to go down and like, it's going to be one of those Amazing Grace songs. And then it was Amazing Grace. Right? So like, she knew those 2 songs. The interesting thing about this is this: How Great Is Our God? It's only like 4 chords, right? But it's song. It's all about. I mean, just the title alone. How Great Is Our God? That's the name of the song. Yeah, beautiful. But Amazing Grace it's got a familiarity, but there's just a lot of creative things happening in Amazing Grace. It's in 6/8. Some people singing in 3/4. So there's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to sing, actually.
It is not the easy. Well,
Like everyone thinks it's easy to sing everyone thinks it's easy to sing because I was talking to our worship director Cam about this. He's like, everyone thinks it's easy to sing because of how knowable it is. Like everyone knows it and had to learn it. But if you're just looking at like singability, how great is our God is way easier to sing than Amazing Grace.
So now musicians I think they're digging deeper again to like some historical, traditional Christian music and learning how to express emotions through music again, which actually leads me to my question. Because going back to what I was saying about your Spotify, your list told me that you had a creative mind because it was super eclectic, right? And then just hearing about like your work on communications. So here's a really heavy. This is not an interview question, but it's a heavy interview question. Talk to me about how you approach your creative like perspective of crossing, scriptural ministry, and then also understanding like like media, content, marketing, and things like that. What's your creative approach to doing the things that you do?
Kind of like a philosophy of creativity almost. Yeah, so when I was in college, I was actually part of like the Ancient Christian Honors Program. And so like it was going, like you did extra work and it was all based off of like studying the early church and like kind of their philosophy or take on things to kind of be like, what is the faith that's kind of been passed down to us? And one of the papers I wrote like truly changed me like forever. It was because the early church had this concept called plundering Egyptian gold. And they created a whole philosophical, theological construct from the Old Testament Exodus story on how really Christians should approach culture, creativity, and things that we might call like non-Christian or worldly creatives create or things like that. And the whole concept is like, hey, when the Israelites are coming out and they're freed from slavery and freed from the Pharaoh's oppression, they're coming out, there's this strange verse where it talks about how like God essentially made the Egyptians, or through God's working, the Egyptians give over all their gold to the Israelites to take with them. It's a really weird thing. Essentially, the Egyptians are like, you conquered us through your God, like with all these plagues, and just leave. We just want you to leave, take all of our gold. And most of the gold would have been like gold idols, like Osiris, Iris, like all these different, pagan deities. And when they leave, the people of God tells them, hey, melt that all down, and I want you to use it to build my tabernacle. And the first two people we know in the Bible to receive the Spirit of God, where it says, and the Spirit of God came upon them, is the two artists, the two creatives, the architectural designers of the tabernacle, who were going to build the place of God's presence and his residence, like where he's going to live with his people. And so you see, it's like, oh, you're taking these pagan, seemingly dirty things, melting them down, and through the Spirit of God, rebuilding them into a place where God is going to reside with his people and be present, and the people are going to worship and praise God. And so the early church had this concept of like, the world's our oyster, man. Like, we should be like looking at how the world is creative. We should be looking at the pagan teachings, like what people are teaching, how things are being taught, and putting Jesus at the center of that. And kind of reconstructing and building things to proclaim him. And so there wasn't like this fear of culture. It was this like, Jesus is one. Like, we have the ability to take all these things and use them for his glory. And so I just see, I think there's a long-standing run with the church where the church has created its own subculture, where it's like, we want to be like what the main culture is, but we don't want to have their messaging. So they create the subculture. And I think that's how you get a lot of like the, K-love worship and like those types of things. And again, like, I'm not a creative who's like, that's bad. Like, I think it has its point, and obviously it reaches people, and the message of a lot of those songs are really great and draw people into deeper love and communion with God. But on the creative side, like, I think of like, there's film directors like Terrence Malick, who's like a Christian who's been wrestling with his faith and he makes some of the best movies ever, or like you think of some of these people who are actually like in the culture as Christians and making art, and it seems a little bit better. And I think it's because they're like, yeah, like I'm able to be in this space, and really like God's story is like, it's the thing that no one would have thought of. Like, and I want to tell this gospel story of God becoming man and saving us, and like God came into our culture and got nitty and gritty and like actually engaged and lived with us and all these things. And like, I want to tell that story with excellence, and I want to tell that story in a way that engages the culture at broad, and I think that's what the early church did. I think that's what Paul did. Like Paul, when he's in Acts at Mars Hill, is referencing their poetry, and he's referencing their stories, their culture, in order to proclaim the gospel. And so I think being creative, my philosophical overarching theme is like, hey, we have the Spirit of God in us to see, like what is beautiful, what is good, what is true. And ultimately Jesus is the most beautiful, the most pure, the most true. He's God incarnate who like showed us what it means to live. And so like, I want to tell that story with excellence, and I want to use all the cultural things that people say are good in order to proclaim that story. And so that's why I like music. I like art, movies. I like, graphic design, anything that is like, looks excellent and beautiful and good. And it points to Jesus. Like I want to use that, and I want to like ultimately make much of him by doing things with excellence. And so, and I by no means am like a great creative. Like I definitely view myself more as like, I can see good things and I notice it and I try to replicate it. I very much lack the ability to be like an original, I think. Like I struggle with like thinking of a cool concept, like an original concept, and making that. I'm very much like, I see something I like and I'm like, that's something different about that. And like, I'll like try to replicate it or something like that. So I wouldn't call myself like a true creative. I probably call myself like someone who like I can recognize, or I just recognize things I like. And I try to.
What's one thing you do to like, I guess, stretch that creative, muscle for yourself?
I think just like consuming. Like there's sometimes like on like, if I feel like I haven't had good new music in a while, I'll just do like a list. I call it a listen party, where I just go on Spotify and look at like similar artists, and I'll just do this deep dive. And I'll be like, okay, what I'll try to find stuff, and then like I create a playlist, and I'll be like, create like new music that I like or things like that. So like there's things like that, and you can do that with everything. Of like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and do this, right? Even like with like movies, or even like social media accounts, like trying to find ones that I like you'll just kind of go through and be like, oh, I like this, and like you kind of add it. But I think there's also like, because everything's become so technology driven, there's also like the possibility when you do that, sometimes I get sucked in too much, and it's like, oh, I just wasted a whole like hour and a half like listening to music or like watching things, and I probably shouldn't have done that much. So maybe I need to set like a timer, like, hey, you got 30 minutes, Pete, to like search and try to find things that you like. But yeah, I think that's it. I think like you get to flex your creativity like when you're looking and you find things that like resonate with you, and you're like, oh, I really like that. So I think that's like one of the ways I stretch it. I like writing a lot. I think writing's the one way that like I try to be like original, or like I like writing. I used to write a lot more, like, obviously like becoming a dad of 3, and being a husband, being a full-time pastor, like, life group, youth group, like all those things. Definitely, like I normally write only probably like once or twice a year, but I used to I really like doing creative writing. And so for me, like if I do want to get better at that, and there's been times where I've been able to like write larger pieces of like essays or things like that, it's pretty much just disciplining myself and being like, you need to sit down and you need to write. And even if you feel like you don't have the juices going right now, just write, just do it. And then that stretches you. And then normally there's like one nugget. I'm like, oh, I can actually use that. And then you string enough of those writing sessions over where it's like, okay, I have like a working creative piece that I can like write, that I can publish, or that I can put out on my blog or something like that.
Have you put out any like books or anything? Or?
No, I have not put out any books. I think that's been a goal that I had since college, was to like write a book. It was like a goal I set for myself. And like, it's just, I think life it's something that I've definitely like lost sight of and haven't like made a priority. or things like that. But I think that's still a goal of mine, would be to someday like write a book. But yeah, I don't have I've had a couple of concepts throughout the years, like, oh, I could write a book about that. I could write a book about that. But I think honestly, like right now, I'm probably more focused on like building my character and virtue first, and like really trying to become like a better dad and and so that way, like if I do write things, because we are like in the Christian sector, and I think sometimes you can write something because you're trying to like help, but like I really want to make sure that like my inner life and like my private life is completely like focused on Jesus before I would ever try to like promote publicly like ideas that I have. I just really want to make sure that like my witness has grown enough to where I'd feel confident of like, yeah, I can stand behind what I write and like put this out here, like and say like I want to be someone who can kind of help people in their walk with Jesus. I think I want my personal witness, and I'm still only 30. Like I have a lot of growth to do, and I'm trying to become a better dad right now. And I'm just trying to like, control my emotions better and things like that. And, one day I don't fret about it, but I think one day I would like to write a book and hopefully have it be impactful in some way.
One thing you're saying I think is pretty awesome is your approach is more countercultural. So as a creative, right? And I keep calling you creative because I think you're really creative. I've never
viewed myself as a creative.
Well, the next question I asked you, I think, if anyone hears just how you approach websites, it's going to like, it blew my mind. Like I told my wife about it. It was the whole thing. But one thing you're saying I think is countercultural, which I love about approaching even your skill set or your tools or, like your work, is that the foundational work is so important. And I think our culture right now is like, now you just got to get out there and put out as much stuff as possible. And over time you will get good. Right. But I don't think that is biblical. I don't think that's I don't think that's as wise. Right. I think, like focusing on like the core foundational things of your character is so important. When I became a pastor, my pastor from Spokane, my old mentor who passed away about a year ago, Pastor Zeke, he sent me this, he always would send me out messages throughout the years and everything when I moved back over here. But he sent me this thing, like a little short message, and I forgot who wrote this, but it was talking about the weight of being a pastor and preaching. And I'll paraphrase it, but it was pretty much saying that, being a pastor, preaching week in and week out, that man has to walk through that pulpit and preach God's word and stand on God's word, but also has to believe that the things that he's doing in his private life match what he's preaching. And it is the constant battle of being a pastor or being a preacher, is making sure that you are aligning with what your words are saying. You're aligning on the other side too. And, you talked about kids, like, man, that is so important because your kids are the first ones that actually hear your sermon, but they don't hear it, they see it, right? So if you're saying one thing and then doing something else at home, like they're going to know that and they're going to see that. And unfortunately, I think in our culture, we've gotten too pro, get everything out, just put it out. Don't worry about your character foundation. It'll happen over time. And I'm just like, it's so counterculture, but like, and it takes time. And it also, for us being young, it might feel like we're missing a window of opportunity, but like God does some of the most miraculous things with people we see in scripture as their character is being like, just tested and fortified and things like that. So I think that's really awesome, man. I really do.
Well, I mean, I think that's a big thing for anyone in ministry, and I think it's a really big thing for any disciple of Jesus, because I think there's been this constant, there's a divide between the proclamation of Jesus, like verbally, and also like in like how we live our lives. And I think there's and again, it's one of the things where the gospel's the gospel. Like, it is powerful on its own. No amount of creativity, no amount of like, like Paul says, no amount of earthly wisdom can make it better. Like, that's why, I think what 1 Corinthians 1 is like, hey, like the Jews want power, like show them a sign and they'll believe in the gospel. Or, hey, the Greeks want wisdom, like make this something that I should believe in intellectually. And Jesus, like the cross kind of like puts both those things to shame, because it's God dying for us, being weak, and it is, like doesn't seem like very intellectual to like allow yourself to die, but yeah, it's exactly the weakness of Jesus that is his power and is his wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that changed the world. And so there's no amount of like creativity or things you can add to that and I think that's the beauty of the gospel is like, it's for everyone. It's for people with disabilities. It's with people for, like physical and learning disabilities. It's with people from different ethnicities, different cultures. Like the gospel is so powerful. It goes into all these places because it's for all people. But then, and so that's where it's important for us as people of Jesus to like make sure we're living that out. And like if we believe this gospel, the gospel transforms. Like the power of Jesus is the Holy Spirit in us, transforming us. And so I just think that's really important of whatever we do is like we are broken people still. And we're not going to do it perfectly, but we should be working on like how does this actually transform my inner life to become more and more like Jesus, to where as I grow to become like him, every area of my life becomes better. So I do become a better father. I do become a better worker. I do become a better husband or wife. How do I do that? And so I think that's like what's so beautiful about the gospel. The gospel goes into so many different people and does that work with different levels of creativity and different levels of like intellect and different levels of, and he brings all of us to being more Christ-like and virtuous. And so I say that all the time of like my creativity, my pastoral work ends and starts with me being a husband and a father. Because if I'm not living out the life of Jesus or growing to become more Christ-like, in these areas, then like everything I'm saying creatively, everything I'm saying, if I preach on a Sunday or when I preach to students or things like that, all of that really becomes, like a moot point of like, oh yeah, well, he's not living it out. And so, and I don't live it out like perfectly by any means. Like I said, I still have a lot of growth. Like I still need to learn to respond to my twin toddler boys better when they are doing things they shouldn't be doing. And we have our almost 2-year-old Sam is like starting to find his voice and starting to get a little like, oh, I want this, and raising his voice. And it's like, I have
3 boys.
Yeah, 3 boys. So yeah, 3 boys. So there's a lot, anyways, I need to grow in a lot of ways. And so I think that's where it's like, that's my primary focus. And if my creativity has to die, like if I have to be like, oh, I'm not going to like write a book or work on something I want to work on because I want to work on what it means to be faithful to God, at being a dad or a father or spending time with them or building magnet tile castles, I'll do that right now. If it means that my character is growing, instead of maybe my competency in certain things. And I think that's always a battle because you want to be growing in competency. You want to I want to become a better creative or write better or, do things better. But sometimes like if I'm doing that at the sake of not growing to become more like Jesus in my virtue and in my character, then again, like that doesn't mean anything. So it's like constantly trying to grow those two things together, your competency and your character, and making sure they're growing at the same time. And I think, a lot of people in our culture will not grow character because they want competency or they want content. Just got to put it out there. And then I think you have people who like work on character so much that they like never like make content, or they never like are like, they never think they're ever good enough to say anything. It's like, no, you could be more bold and you can kind of speak up a little bit. So yeah, so I think that's a tension that everyone faces and Christians face very much, especially if you're proclaiming that you're a Jesus follower. You just got to make sure your competency and your character are growing at the same pace and are working together. And you're not sacrificing character for competency or competency, actually, you should always grow character. I need to think about that more.
Flush that one out.
But yeah, but you should definitely not if your competency is making your character, worse, you should rethink some things.
I get that. I think as you're talking, I'm just like, man, your first book should probably be the character of creating. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
I'll put that in my back pocket.
Right there.
Right there. Yeah.
If it's Levi's, you might want to go front. The back pocket's a little bit limited.
I don't wear Levi's.
You don't wear Levi's?
No, I'm a Lululemon and Lululemon knockoff guy.
Okay.
So I'll wear those two things.
Have we had a Lululemon conversation?
I think we did, about how I was so against it, and then like I tried it and I'm like, why was I against
why were you not? Okay, so there's another brand that I gotta ask Janelle what it was called, but she put me onto it. We were in Carmel by the Beach, California, like right outside of Monterey. We went to this place and they had like a clearance. You know, I'm looking for the clearance.
Yeah.
Like I walk past.
I'm always looking for the clearance.
Like, where's your clearance tag? Oh, there's a red tags. Okay. And like it was something that was like 70% off, and I bought this shirt. It's got the V on it. I forgot the name of it, but anyways, their stuff is similar to Lululemon's. I think it might be like a one step up on quality. And I got that shirt for like, I don't know, it was a deal like $35 or something like that. And dude, it has been life-changing. The same way that Lululemon has been life-changing for me. So now when I travel, I just look at the Lululemon outlets. And I'll go there like to see what they have, you know.
Wait, there's Lululemon outlets?
You didn't know this? I'm going to change your mind.
No, where are Lululemon outlets?
The closest one we have is the Seattle Premium Outlets.
Like by Everett? It's like north of Everett, right?
Just north of Seattle. It's literally... It's an hour and 5 minutes from our current location.
I have our next family day planned now.
Go there.
Hey kids, we're gonna go to the mall up there.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm there,
is there a kids play area at the mall?
Huge. It's the biggest outlet I've ever seen.
There's got to be a kids play area, right?
Oh yeah. They got everything there.
Dude, that's like half of my nights is, especially during the winter. It's like, Dad, can we go to the mall? And it's like, you know, it sounds like a great thing, and it's like they want to go play in the indoor like playground because it's not raining. It's like, oh, let's go play at the indoor mall. It's like literally I'm like, okay, this is great. I got to go into H&M and shop a little bit, and then like, I'll grab a black, you know, decaf coffee from Starbucks, and I just sit and watch my 3 kids play in this little tiny playground, and they're so content just to play because it's an indoor playground. So like they love mall playgrounds because to them it's like we can always go there and play because like whether it's rain or shine, we can go to this indoor mall playground.
Bowling alleys for us.
Oh, bowling alleys.
Yeah, my son calls it the bowling place. Mainly because of Tower Lanes has like the arcade.
Yeah.
So we go to the arcade. We put some, a little bit of money on their cards, and they just go around and play in that little mini arcade. Yeah. Which we love. And here's the thing: I realized that they love that place better than like the bigger arcade. So we took them to a big one.
The Odyssey one.
The one in Puyallup, the new one. It's like a bowl one, something like that. It's huge, right? Like huge. And they didn't have as much fun. But like the little one with just like 10, 15 games, like it's the same games. They do the same thing and they just rotate it and they love it. Like they absolutely love it. You
don't have to drive as far for it. That's nice.
Not too far. Yeah, not too far. And it's great for us because we can just kind of sit in one spot and see the whole room. Mm-hmm. And it's my son wants to go bowling one day too, which he's not ready for it yet, but he calls it the bowling place. When I say that he loves this, we're in church having prayer requests and praise reports. So like he raised his hand to speak, and he literally says these words. I kid you not. I want you guys to pray for me, for my dad, to take me to the bowling place because he said we can't go to the bowling place, and I want to go to the bowling place. And now the church is all looking at me like take him to the bowling place.
You can answer this prayer, Pastor. You can answer this prayer.
Be a prayer answerer right
Grow
now.
your child's faith. Take him to the bowling alley.
That is it's so crazy. And they, like him and my daughter just love going there and hanging out. So it's really good. All right, so a couple more questions for you, just real quick. You showed me how you approach building websites, or at least how you approached building your current church website. Yeah. And how there's a huge connection between getting more connected with the church and how the website flows. Yep. Can you give me the rundown on that real quick? Yeah.
And this is not an idea to me. This was something obvious, like I did through research and development of just kind of like really liking, but it's like the whole concept is that you're taking people through a journey. I like the term journey is better. Like some people will say it's a funnel, right? You're trying to funnel people. Funnel just makes it seem a little bit more like businessy. So I like the idea of like a journey. But you're taking people on a journey of like what it means to connect at the church. And so like we build the website in a way where, and it's also even just like your messaging, like what are you guys about or things like that. You want them to know that first and foremost. Like this is like what we're about. This is like a mass message for like anyone who's a Christian, anyone who's a non-Christian can understand this and get, okay, this is what this organization exists for. Knowing our mission, vision, or what we exist for is different than integrating into the community. So you want to take people from, hey, this is our mission, this is what we're about, and then you take them on a journey of like, and this is how you progressively become more a part of this. And so like for us, right after it's our mission statement on our website, we have like video, and then over it is like a typing effect of we are, and then it's our mission statement. Like we are a movement. We are Passion Jesus followers. We are we are experiencing God, we are loving others, building legacy, and impacting communities, like which are like it's our mission statement, but it's like through kind of like a fun typing effect. And so then that's like the big kind of like, this is who we are. Okay, well, I like that. Like, how would I participate in that? Next thing is like, hey, here are the two places we gather as a church, Tacoma and Gig Harbor. If you want to, we would invite you to come on a Sunday is a easy step to kind of like find out more about us, or maybe it's like your first step for becoming a part of this community. Well, you can go to a church, you can attend a church gathering and not become a part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can attend it once and be like, oh, that really wasn't for me, and go to another church. Well, that's totally fine. Or you could be attending for a long time and really just go there for the Sunday sermon and then not get plugged into the community. You know, we value community, and we value, you know, at Resurrection Church, we want people to get plugged into more than just coming on a Sunday, even though we think Sundays are really important as well. And so then as you keep on going down, it's like the different things are like pretty much you can find about us, which is kind of like more of our philosophy of ministry, doctrinal statement, stuff like that. People who really have to search have to like want to find that, like of like, and the people who have those questions can't always find it, but you have to like look for it. Everything else is more catered towards people who like are like, yeah, how do I get integrated? And so then after that is like, you'll see the different at the option is like, hey, there's always a place for you in our community. And it's a running list of different steps people can take. And I think we used to have an idea or a concept of a discipleship pathway where, we want everyone to take this linear journey. And I think the more like me, and then even like Dave, our executive pastor, like we talked about it, is like, that's just not real life. Like not everyone has the time to go take like your 8-week class to like be like, this is who we are as a church or things like that. So I think we've now, instead of like being like a linear progression, we're a lot more just take one step. It doesn't have to be like, so it could be join a life group. It could be get on a serve team. It could be, we do meetups, which are like one-off events based around like the people of our church run them. So we don't organizationally run them. We created an organizational process for people to run their own events for the church. And so there's things from like card games to book clubs to learning to sew to like, you know, meetups at like restaurants in the community. There's a bunch of different things. And so it could be like, oh, I'm going to go attend a meetup and go hang out with the people of this church or things like that. And so we kind of, our journey very much is like, this is our big mission, vision, who we are. Like, we want you to attend a gathering maybe as a first step. And then we want you to get connected. And so that might be attending our church life lunch, which is like meeting the leaders and like learning how to get even more connected. It could be attending a meetup. It could be joining a life group right off the bat. It could be joining a serve team and serving the church right off the bat, you know? And we see people do different things. Like I've met people who like are serving on my hospitality team and aren't in a life group yet and haven't even attended like a church life lunch. They skipped the lunch of meeting the leaders. Like, I just want to serve. So they get plugged in that way. And then that's where the community happens. That's where they're meeting people in the church who have been there for 2 years. And they're meeting people who have been in the church for 8 years. And they're meeting the leaders, pastors who run the ministries that they oversee, and they get prayed for. And we have prayer meetings before we serve. And that's where the community happens. And they're getting involved that way. And then like we see people then be like, they go to their friends, hey, you should come to church with me. Or they go to their like non-Christian coworkers, like, hey, you should come try out church. Like I serve coffee. I'll serve you some coffee if you come, or things like that. And so that's kind of the journey we take people on. And then and then on all of our main pages, every single page has its own journey. So like our About Us page has its own journey, or like our life groups page has its own journey. And we order things in a way of like, what's the most important thing they need to know? How do they get connected? And so the hope is that you are telling people a story. So by the end of it, they're like, oh yeah, I do want to be a part of this, or I do want to like join in. And so that's kind of how we approach the website. That's how we try to like do it. So we try to lead people on journeys to get them connected into the community. It's kind of how we do it. And obviously we try to use a lot of photos and a lot of video so that people can get a feel for what it's like. No church community is perfect. Like, we don't have like the perfect community. No one has the perfect community, but we try to show realistically what our community is like and invite people into that.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I really do love that approach. When you first told me about it, I was just like, That's just really heavy stuff. I mean, it's really intentional too. And sometimes I think churches can have to hire someone else to do their website or whatever. And I get it. Like, you know, if you have to outsource that, that's fine. But the intentionality of it feels very connected to the foundation of the community, right?
Yeah.
The church community itself. So that's good. All right, here we go. Rapid fire.
Yes.
You got 10 seconds to answer these 5 questions.
That's so hard for me.
Okay.
Being concise is my weakness.
Oh my Lord.
I'll be concise.
Why is it every pastor cannot?
I know, it's all the same.
Last time I said 30 seconds and it was like a 2-minute answer. I was like, all right.
Okay, 10 seconds is what I got?
10 seconds, man.
Okay.
10 seconds. And I'll try to like tailor the question so it won't stretch it too much. All right. What is your top Christian song right now that you're listening to and why?
Oh, top Christian song?
Christian song, choral song, hymn, however you want to.
Like actual worship song.
Worship song.
Okay, it's explicitly about Jesus and God.
So I knew you're going to see. This is what I'm talking about. What is your top? You know what? What's your top song right now and why? There you go.
Okay. Oh, okay. That is actually. Can I actually look at my phone?
Jeez,
Am I allowed to?
We're already
Okay,
at
hey,
like 15 seconds.
I'm just saying, like, this is a big question for me right now because you talked me up as a creative
You are.
the whole first half, and then now it's gonna be like, is he just gonna pick some generic song that he's been vibing to lately? It's
How
like,
great is our God? Because we talked about it.
Man,
It is a hard question.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's an artist I've been listening to a lot. He's like an indie Christian artist, Taylor Armstrong, who like I really listen to a lot right now. And he's like he has a song called First Place, and it's just like he doesn't have the greatest voice, but it's just a really good song about like how does Jesus take first place in your heart, and about how like that like makes everything everything else gets ordered in your life because of that. So I've been listening to that a lot, but this in complete honesty, I have been probably listening to the most like praise and worship music in my life that I've ever listened to before. And it is purely because like I do feel like I think what you put in like does change like your like who you are. Like,
Yes.
you know, and I had realized I don't know how to say this. I was lacking like in my joy when so like and it's not that like, oh, this fixes me, because like obviously I need to be in the word more and like things like that, but I was like like, you know, so there are certain songs, like there's a song called All Is For Your Glory that Jesus Image does, and it's just like, all is for your glory, you know. It's like, you know, saying that you can take the preeminence in our lives, and it's like this group of like 1,000, it's a live recording, so you hear everyone singing it, and it's just like a really great song. Or like, so like there's like those types of songs, like Jeremy Riddle put out like a live in his prayer room, and it's like he has a song called Jesus Have It All, and like his name is Jesus, and all these songs, you know, of people singing like in this prayer room. And it's like I actually have been like listening to like a lot of worship music lately, and yeah, but that's more so for my character. It's more so for like for me to kind of have some joy bubble up. So I'm at a minute, so I'm just gonna stop talking probably. So I know we're at two,
like 3 or
two,
4.
Dag
The
nabbit.
next question was gonna be, what's your favorite color? Because I was like, if you give me a long answer.
Green.
Green.
Next question. Next question.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite book in the Bible and why? 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
You got this.
Okay,
Peter?
Really,
Is it Peter?
It's not Peter. It's not Peter.
First Peter?
No, it's not Peter. I really like Ecclesiastes. It's a book that really helped me process my dad's death, and really helped me realize the fleeting nature of life and the importance of just like obeying God and loving his commands and seeking him more and more.
Yeah.
So probably Ecclesiastes.
If there's one biblical character you can hang out with for a day, not Jesus, who would it be and why?
I would go with my namesake, with Peter.
Yes.
I think his story is so cool, of like messing up time and time again, just like believing wholeheartedly Jesus is the Christ, but then like, you know, being told he's going to betray him and betraying him, and Jesus coming back and saying, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me 3 times? And him reaffirming his love for him after he denied him 3 times. Like, I love that story. I would love to talk with him about his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I had a couple answers for myself, and then as you were talking, I like thought about it one more time. I was like, who would it be? And I was like, it might be Joseph. Jesus' earthly father. because
Oh.
like the pressures of being a father right now is high. You know, I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm constantly asking myself the same question: how am I doing? Like, you know, am I living up to where I need to live up to? How's my character at home? You know, those questions. And we don't really know a lot about him and, you know, those early years of Jesus.
Yeah.
We assume he died or something, you know, just because of where he kind of drops off the story. But yeah, I mean, I just wonder, like, the amount of pressure in his mind. Like, I know who Mary is, I know who my son is, and I know like what has been put in my hands for responsibility, like what that looks and feels like. It'd be interesting just to ask some questions. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That'd be kind of an interesting one. So, Pete, tell us where they can find more about you, Resurrection Church, all that stuff like that. Where can they go?
Yeah, I mean, resurrectionchurch.com is our website that I talked about. So you can go check that out there. Instagram is just Resurrection WA for Resurrection Washington. Same on Facebook, Resurrection WA. So you can follow us there. We put out like sermon reels and events, things like that to get plugged into the community through that. And yeah, I think those are like the main channels that we do. I know that we need to be on TikTok. It's like the hardest thing for me to get on TikTok because I just don't understand it. And I'm an Instagram guy, so I know. But for right now, Instagram, Facebook, we have like a newsletter. You can join our newsletter by going to the website. So you can subscribe to the newsletter if you go to the Tacoma or Gig Harbor pages. So
Awesome.
yeah, those are the general ways.
Thanks, brother.
Sweet. Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.